Hi, Blake. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Victor. Thank you.
This is a strange situation we find ourselves here. May I ask you why are you here?
I'm here to assist in the birth of this amazing Shinzen-based retreat center. And I was drawn into it almost by what would seem to be an accident, but maybe not. And
To this
to this
thing,
operation,
okay.
and once I understood the vision and the sincerity of Sun Tree, and I offered my services for whatever I can do, and that's a variety of things. Sometimes I'm sort of acting as an agent in contacting American teachers and others. And then sometimes I'm here just kind of, I don't know, just sitting around, eating really good food, doing lots of practice. We do some talking about how to advance the project, and that's why I'm here right now.
Right. So I'm not sure if it turns out to be a commercial for coming springs, but good if it does, because it's a beautiful place and one of those places inspired by Shinzen's line of work and teachings, and you're one of the older students, or would it be
I think
better to
it's
say
longer.
elder students?
Someone once said Silverback.
Silverback.
So we're the
Okay.
Silverbacks.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there slowly as well. So, did you meet Shinzen by chance also, or
I
how
did.
did it happen
I
and
did.
when? Could you just tell more?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, variety of aspects of my life fell apart, and I ended up in Tucson, Arizona, with not knowing anyone, new job, new living in a new place, and I was more or less building my life over from scratch. And
How old were you by that point?
let's say, my sense of the passage of time is ridiculous, but let's see, that would have been in 2001 when I first started, when I first came upon Shinzen, and I'm almost 70 now. So, and this is 2026. So,
So 50 something.
yeah,
50, 45 maybe.
that sounds about
Right.
right.
Yeah.
So,
About my age. Let's put it
uh,
this way, maybe.
so I decided I was going to try and get serious about meditation practice, and I found the Tucson Community Meditation Center, which had formed in the wake of a Shinzen visit to the University of Arizona. There were some people there that were in the Oriental Studies program, and they heard him speak, and they said, we need to start a sitting group. We need to start a practice. And so that meditation center was born as a Shinzen Sangha. And I started going to their classes, which consisted of playing Shinzen cassette tapes, right? And of guided practice. And then after a couple months, the woman who sort of ran the place said, Shinzen's coming to lead a retreat. And he used to do 2 retreats a year in Tucson. And she said, you should go. And I said, okay, what is that? And I went and never stopped. And I never felt the need really to find another teacher. He's always, anytime I go to the well, I come back with a full bucket. So,
Right.
so that's
Right.
how that happened.
And you ended up co-teaching with him at retreats.
Yeah, so he started fairly late in his career having co-teachers join him at his in-person retreats. And so I did 3 of those at residential retreats with him early on. And then I've done some like weekend retreats co-teaching with him.
So when did you feel that something changes in your perception of yourself or the world, or like what was the first, what clicked first, or I don't know a better way to put it, but
Sure.
this like watershed kind of moment when you understand, yes, it's working for me. It's not just pretty words.
Right. Yeah. So that moment when I realized something changed.
That's the mindfulness bell. Bow.
Something changed. I was camping with my kids, and I set up the tent and set up the air mattress, and then I realized that the air mattress had a leak, and that I was going to be sleeping on the ground that night. And the way I processed that was different. There was the level of suffering wasn't there, and I noticed. That's different. And then I could tell you another that has been really influential. And so when I first started with Shinzen, his core practice was body image talk,
Yes.
bit space.
Yes.
And Shinzen, at that time and for a long time, one of the things he wanted was his students to memorize everything. So all the noting,
The
all
formulas.
That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so I had done that, and I'm doing the practice, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, we're going to do feel image talk instead." So he changed.
Yeah, improvising
he
and
changed
trying
this
to
core
find
practice.
yeah.
And I was still fairly new, so I didn't realize that was always going to happen. That he was never going to stop.
Yes.
And it was always going to be changing. And so I was like, well, I just learned all this other stuff. And then the other thing was, I think, relatively insensitive to my own emotional body sensation. And so I remember thinking, I'm sitting here with my eyes closed in a quiet room. Why am I going to be having any emotional body sensations, any emotional experience? So I was a little bit, and then
What should I note? Right.
That's right.
There's nothing nothing's
going
happening.
on.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then one day, I detected something. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew it was emotional, and it was this kind of a just a twisting, subtle, wispy twisting thing in this front central axis, and that was it. The door just opened, and now, for me, as day to day, the processing of emotional body sensations, and also how I work with students, emotional body sensations is like key. If I had to say one thing in the practice that's key, that's it.
Right.
And so I went from zero to everything, and in the practice, and so that was another watershed.
Cool. So one story is about the real life situation that you found yourself in, and the second one is what happened inside like formal meditation practice. So a good
balance.
Both are interesting and important, and it's peculiar how we tend to like recognize these things as meaningful and different, and then something ever so slightly, subtly maybe shifts, right? So you begin to notice that more.
Right.
But I'd like to follow up on this emotional body sensation thing, because yes, it is crucial, of course, because ultimately it's about the ways we react to our experience, which is either suffering or non-suffering, right? So the earlier you begin to detect the emotional body sensations, the better, basically.
Yes.
The earlier you begin to learn how to, work with that. A pleasant feeling sensation now. It's not edible. I'm sorry. It's not. It's just not edible. Yeah, go find something else. So I wonder if you have any tips maybe, or some advice about how to detect or how to work with? What do you usually say to people who come to you and say, I don't feel anything, I'm just sitting, I know how to observe my breath, but what does emotion? Don't we? Aren't we supposed to just, be calm and observe our breath coming in and going out or whatever? So what do you say? And maybe if you have some certain tips that you developed over time to.
So different people arrive with different relationships to their emotional body sensations. Some people are overwhelmed
Right.
all the time,
Right.
and then for them it's often a question of in Shinzenese divide and conquer.
Yes.
So bringing clarity to the components and working with it in a practice at a carefully metered level where some equanimity can be applied. And then there's others who are more like me, or people with PTSD often have very little or shut down emotional body sensation.
Yeah.
And then for them, I lead evoking practices so frequently. So starting by saying, okay,
Remember something.
yeah, let's come up with some words or phrases or mental image that you think is going to evoke a manageable level of some kind of emotional challenge. And then I have them during the practice evoke and then pay attention.
Right.
And then bringing clarity. So part of working with challenging emotional body sensations is substituting curiosity for fear.
Yeah. Oh man.
Right.
That's yes.
And so kind of a formalized clarity process helps stimulate curiosity.
Yeah.
So I can carefully suggest, you might want to see how big is it, focusing on what's happening in the body. How big is it?
Right.
Where is it? Does it have a firm shape? Is it moving?
Yeah.
Is it expanding, contracting, etc.? So kind of directing them to, because if you just say, focus on your body sensation, people don't know necessarily what you mean. But actually you're talking about something very clear. You're talking about map this as if you were, mapping a new territory, and it's your own territory.
Right.
And then that can cause them to experience their emotional body sensations in a way they never have before, and that can stimulate their curiosity. It's like, wow, has this always been going on? Oh, look at that. Isn't that interesting? And then that can make it easier to have equanimity with it as well. And the fear that might arise tends to get displaced by that curiosity for their own experience in the moment.
So striking the body bell, right?
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, I love that as well. Yeah, it's a good one because you cannot, well, usually when people start the practice, they don't know how to directly begin experiencing whatever emotion there is, right?
Right.
So you have to trigger it with some kind of a thought or an image.
Right.
Do you let people play with like negative emotions as well, like remember something sad or whatever, remember something frightful?
I usually don't direct them to a specific emotion. I might say something like, if they want more detail, something like maybe an image of a person, like a coworker who you've had a conflict with, family member.
Yeah.
Usually people don't have much trouble finding something once you direct them to what you're talking about. And as far as being, so I will usually call it challenging emotion.
Challenging.
And then the flip side, of course, is evoking pleasant emotion, which is fine, and I think a good part of every practice, but it shouldn't be the whole practice. It's another one of those places that can be a trap, the way restful states can be, because it can be a refuge from the challenging aspects of experience. And so some of that, good, but you want to balance it with evoking the challenging experiences. And that, partly because that's seems to be how you drain that pool of poison and pain, as Shinzen calls it, right? The stored up traumatic material that tends to be driving us to act unskillfully, and sort of amplifying challenging experiences and making our responses inappropriately intense and so on. And so that, in some kind of magic way, that shining the light of attention on that stored up stuff seems to release it over time, like boiling away in a way. I sometimes imagine being in like the cartoon Cannibal's cooking pot. It's like something, this is especially in like some event arises in life. It's like, wow. And then I just sit in the Cannibal's pot, if I'm alone, preferably, and just boil. And that's boiling away. It's that purification process.
I like the phrase that Shinzen uses about how our emotions, when experienced in a non-mindful way, they drive and distort.
Right.
And when experienced mindfully, they inform and direct. So there is different kind of relationship to them, and so first you have to recognize them anyway. So for people, overwhelmed is about dividing and conquering, so to speak. So learning to, okay, it's already here, but how can I attend to it in a more skillful way? And for people who don't feel anything, it's about, okay, now you feel it, now you feel it, now okay. So that's one of the flavors, right?
Right.
And also we talked a little before. It's not a like a what's the word? It's not a revelation anyway, or a spoiler.
We've been having a pleasant conversation for several days now.
Right.
It's been splendid, actually.
Right. So it wouldn't be a spoiler for anyone, but we've talked about how you include the somatic component into your work, and maybe slightly more so than Shinzen typically does, because he aims more towards like attentional skills and not too much instruction about what to do somatically. Let's put it this way. And so, for example, like when you ask people to think about some challenging person or situation, what I find useful is to let them notice how they clench and tense, and because that's usually what happens when you remember something that you don't like. So
trying to resist.
Yeah. So it could be a very pronounced like bodily action that you do.
Yes.
So do you do something similar, like directing people to recognize what's happening, what they're doing with their bodies, to undo it potentially, or to do it in a different way, or how do you approach this this whole somatic thing?
So, well, let's see. So I do sometimes instruct in. I will teach what Shinzen used to call easy rest.
Easy rest, yes.
And that includes a systematic relaxation of the body.
Right.
And I tend to think about systematically relaxing the body as inviting equanimity.
Okay.
Yeah. It creates it isn't equanimity in itself. Right. I don't think, or I don't describe it that way, but because, as you say, resistance often a symptom of resistance. So a symptom of the absence of equanimity is tension in the body.
Right.
So that's one way to kind of invite equanimity. So I do teach it that way and talk about it that way. But sort of in contrast, as you said, to Shinzen, many of my students seem to be predominantly verbal thinking creatures. And I think Western society has a lot of overemphasis on verbal thinking at the expense of some somatic awareness, and that the wisdom of the body gets drowned out frequently, and or ignored or suppressed. And
Yeah, like it's all here.
that's right.
Right.
This is just a meat
Yeah.
robot that carries us
Yeah.
around from one computer to another, and has this nasty tendency of breaking down unexpectedly, expensive to fix. But
And spoiling us the experience or whatever.
that's right.
Right.
But in fact, it's this glorious conduit to life. It is, and language, super powerful, but truncated. It's always truncated. It's just a symbol of something, and it's very fast. It's very flexible, and it's very loud in the sense that it tends to predominate because of those characteristics.
To shadow everything else. kind
Right.
of, to put the shadow. Yeah.
So I do get people focusing on their body frequently to try and balance that out.
Right.
Of course, there are some people who I teach attorneys for the state bar actually on an annual basis, and so they're like, and so I'm always like, I one of the things that I have to say then is, you know, the mental narrative, the mental talk, the narrative that you've always got going, describing what you're experiencing in life, is so closely associated with awareness itself that you probably think it's the same thing. But trust me, you can have awareness without mental talk. And that's what I'm going to try and help you discover, because that can open up a new level of richness in your life.
So how would you describe the aim or the goal, like, of what you're doing, what you're offering to people? Does it depend on what they come for? Well, of course it depends to a certain extent, but how do you like see what you're doing? I was just piggybacking the richness of life. Such a good expression.
Well, that's absolutely part of it. The richness of life, and with the richness of life comes this experience where the present moment gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the past and the future lose real estate in consciousness as this present moment becomes ever more glorious and rich. And with that, a lot of suffering passes away. As Shinzen says, there's only so much consciousness and real estate in consciousness. Yeah. And so if it's heavily occupied with the richness of this moment and all its glorious details, there's not much room left for a fixated sense of self to cry about how it's a changing world and it doesn't want to change. And so there's that. And different people, students come with different issues, and some, very common, for example, is sort of an underlying sense of anxiety or fear, sadness also, fear, anger, sadness, the big three. And so often I'm working with them to develop a more friendly relationship with that experience.
Yes, amen to that. Yes, yes.
And that, the idea of if you don't make that an enemy separate from attacking you from the outside, and instead this sense of separate identity becomes more porous and transparent, and the borderlines less firm, and then your full experience is unified. Suffering goes away. You still may feel fear, sadness, anger, and so on, even as a residue from the past. kinds of trauma are very deep, and I never promise we're going to get rid of your fear. We're going to get rid of anxiety. That's all going away, because first of all, it may not, and secondly, the need to have it go away is the opposite of the antidote of not needing it to go away.
Of letting go of resistance to
That's
it.
right.
Yes.
Which is very hard to convey with words. People have to taste that sense of relief when they let go of the resistance. So I've wandered far from whatever you asked. But,
we're just having a good time. Hopefully it gets recorded. Hopefully we are in focus.
yes.
At least we are internally, in focus.
Exactly.
Hopefully on camera as well. Even if we are not, maybe just it's a good audio. Whatever. We'll see what happens.
We're having fun anyway.
Yes, certainly. So, one way of looking at, we come from the same father, right?
Yeah.
So of course we have a very similar kind of view on what's happening and how to deal with that and whatnot. Just to continue further, there is so much real estate in consciousness. Of course, another way of putting it would be that when we direct our attention towards something, it tends to expand, so occupy like more space and like pushing everything, all the rest, just outside of the frame, basically. Right. So when it expands, everything else contracts. And when you direct it towards the experience, which is the building, like the object that we deal with, right? Experiences, then present moment expands with everything else just contracting.
Right.
But then the interesting thing is that, and for me, it's a gateway from colloquial mindfulness, of be here now variety, towards a deeper realization, is when you attend to the present moment fully, you realize you cannot have it or grasp onto it, or grab it, have it. I don't know. It's
right.
You cannot. There is nothing to have,
right.
and no one to have it.
That's right.
It's a weird. I struggle with words to describe it. Maybe you can, explain it by the way that I'm trying to do. But an interesting thing is just it follows from this pouring all your attention towards what's happening right now, what you feel, what you hear, and it's just a direct consequence.
Right. Right. Yeah. So there's because this world is unfolding moment by moment out of the unknown in a unfixated process. Our habit of fixation is what creates our suffering. And so as we become more and more attuned to the knife edge of this moment, there's less possibility of fixating. And that brings us more into alignment with what the world really is, which is a process. And there is no thing there to grab, and there is no, and including no thing of me as a separate identity to do the grabbing. And so the boundaries melt, and the sticking of the mind anywhere releases. And there's no more grabbing onto any event or any circumstance or any sensory event, because it's just flowing. Yeah.
But if it's so beneficial, and we would agree probably that it is beneficial, why is it so counterintuitive? I mean, why would we need to create all those ways of grasping and avoiding and if this is a more beneficial scenario.
So that's a really interesting question, and I don't know the answer. But
What's your
it's-
musings about it?
So my best guess is that the sense of a separate suffering self as thing
In the world of objects.
in a world of objects is a
Concrete.
side effect of the way our brains have developed. And so our higher brain functions have tremendous survival value. That's how we got to be what we are in the world of survival.
Hopefully continue to
Right.
to be-
Yeah. That it doesn't have a terminal result.
Yeah.
But there's a side effect somehow that we. So part of that power we have is predictive, predicting that when those crops are going to mature, and where the predator lives, and so on. And so that's a very powerful part of our powers, our higher powers. But it creates this tendency to take the strands of experience and weave them into this fabric of predictability and solidity in a stream with no predictability or solidity. I mean, predictability does exist, but we're still just. So there's a Japanese saying I just learned recently that translates as an inch ahead is pitch darkness. So that being propelled into the unknown. But we as a side effect of the way our higher brain functions have developed, we have this tendency to fabricate and this illusory sense of self, and then trying to maintain that in this changing world is a futility, but it's also the struggle that we constantly have. And then one way of thinking about this practice is by paying attention to the way these strands are woven together, the glue starts to soften and they start to become looser, and then that allows this sense of a separate fixated self to become softer and more fluid and more transparent and more porous. And that's how, when the air mattress has a hole in it, that passes through instead of shit. It's whoosh. And maybe if it causes a ripple, then it's just a ripple and not a grab. And that goes for much bigger things that pass through. He's a coconut shredding machine.
Right, and if you can fix it, fix it. If you cannot fix it, whatever. That's you're sleeping on the ground
That's right.
tonight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Watch it.
I remember Rick Hanson's one of the early kind of popularizers of this whole neurophysiological approach to Dharma, which he's getting criticized for, probably kind of. Anyway, whatever. It's another topic. But I like this chapter that he has in his Buddha's Brain, book,
Heard of that.
where he says that we are peculiar creatures. We like consistency, so things have to, stay the same more or less in order for us to feel good about it. Not feel too anxious and whatever. But at the same time, we don't like too much, solidity. It has to change in order to entertain us, right? Otherwise, it'll just it's all the same. No, we want something new, just not too new, not too fast, whatever. And the same about ourselves also. We like to understand that we are the same persons we went to sleep the other day, right? Yesterday. So I am this same individual, but at the same time, we wouldn't like an idea of us not changing. It's somehow daunting and creates more suffering to think of ourselves that I cannot change. I cannot change my views. I cannot change the way I deal with my no. It's important for us that we are potentially changing at least.
Right.
So this is a very fine line between chaos and structure. It cannot be too structured, otherwise it wouldn't change, but it cannot be too chaotic, otherwise it's just too much
right.
stress again. So very peculiar fine line between those two.
That's true. Yeah, so sometimes I'll ask a student, if you knew everything that was going to happen before it happened, would you want to live? What would be the point of even living? And so it's that. So our life is made rich, and you said entertaining, and that's true, by the unknown. But also, like you say, if the sun doesn't come up tomorrow, it's going to be a bad day. Actually,
something's wrong. Something really wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's right. And then I suppose it's a matter of finding the balance that is optimal for happiness.
Right.
And so it's clinging too. It's when something unexpected happens, the way we process that matters. So we can plan. I mean, we do.
Yes.
We plan, and we have certain expectations, and we do things, that we act in the world.
Well, we both came here to Common Springs, for
right.
example, right?
That's right. So we act in the world with an expectation of certain results.
Yeah.
But then the relationship we have to the results matters.
Yes.
And when something doesn't turn out the way we expect, we want to be, we want to not be chagrined by that. And I'll say one thing about Shinzen. So I've had the great...
Say more. Say 10 things about Shinzen.
So... so I've had the privilege of living in Tucson where he is, and doing some mundane things with him, and like, taking him to the cleaners and the stuff like that, and then also at the lab. And something I noticed about the way he relates to the world is he will be highly motivated to do something, and if he runs into an obstacle, goes around it. No friction, like water going around a boulder in a river. It's like without any resistance without any residue of what he expected or wanted. It's just the next thing, and that's extraordinary. And the more I saw it, the more I was like, that's that frictionless moving in the world of a fluid self. So very interesting to see it in action.
Thanks for sharing. I had a privilege of accompanying him in China to have noodles, to drink beer, to just do these random things also, and it was just such a better than the formal teachings,
right?
In a certain sense, because I've had a lot of formal teachings from him over the years, but that was something very very special and very endearing.
You find yourself like floating on that bliss, that blissful energy.
Right, right. So you mentioned this Japanese saying, and I want to use it as an excuse to go into this Japanese side of you, of yours. Just within these few days that we were, talking. I didn't get the idea of how you see these different things that you like and do fit, or how do they inform each other? How does it work? I know that you're into like Japanese Japanese like martial arts? Is
Yeah, so
fair
I
fair to say?
practice
Yeah,
Kyudo,
Kyudo.
which is Japanese archery.
Archery. Okay, yeah.
And it's really ceremonial,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very formalized. And it's also, after the college level, it's kind of a sport. But after that, it's practiced very much as a contemplative practice. And it's involves the Zen-influenced breath, ritual of breathing in a particular way, and it's done quite slowly. So so there's that, and that really being a contemplative practice and a somatic ritual that fits into my practice.
So it's like a Japanese Tai Chi kind of
Yeah.
thing, but with a bow and an
Yeah,
arrow.
with a bow and arrow. Yep,
Ah.
that's true. It's not as fluid. So, but yeah, it's more. I mean, it is relaxed to the extent it can be relaxed as you're drawing the bowstring. But it isn't as circular or fluid. So there's that. So my Japanese, I used to study also Aikido and Iaido, and very interested. So I actually try and play the Japanese flute, and my teacher,
Shakuhachi.
yeah, Shakuhachi. So and my teacher and I talk a lot about this practice, and he's started practice, meditation practice. When I was young, like from high school on, I read a lot of Eastern philosophy, and particularly Japanese, Zen kind of stuff. But I never had a practice. And I did martial arts as kind of a way to sort of practice, but not really sit and do practice. And he describes that as being a bedstand Buddhist, where someone just they read about Buddhism, they read about meditation, and that was me. So a bedstand Buddhist. So
you have a book near your bed.
yeah, that's right. And you read about it, and it maybe feels good, and it's entertaining, maybe motivating, but it's not practice. So now I forgot what I was going to say.
How did you know by the time that you decided to get to Tucson meditation group? How did you know that that's what you wanted or needed? I mean, did you have some certain predisposition for from what you said that you were interested in like Eastern philosophy and
so I had done a lot of reading on Eastern philosophy, Alan Watts, and listening to a lot of his talks. And actually, before I had moved to Tucson, I was driving to work one day, listening to an Alan Watts tape he was talking about time, and I turned off the tape, and I turned my attention to this present moment as directly as possible, and everything shifted, and there was no longer a separate me. There was only the oneness, and so that was a profound experience for me at that time. And although I kind of settled back into a more fixated life, there was a taste left in my mouth. And it wasn't long after that everything fell apart, and I ended up in Tucson, and so I still had this momentum of some kind, and found Shinzen.
But isn't the way you teach now somehow influenced by this whole Japanese kind of approach? As we for the viewers and listeners, you can check out Blake's book on Amazon, I guess.
Available on Amazon.
Yes, and it's Sanshindo.
Yes.
Right. So the way of three hearts rendered in Japanese.
Yeah.
So why would you do you present it this way elsewhere, or is it just for the book, and why?
So the the I was actually in Japan by myself, just my first visit, wandering around, and I had this realization that see, hear, feel is not just a convenient way of parsing sensory experience for purposes of noting. It is that, and it's good for that, but it actually points to something more fundamental about the way the human psyche is organized. And I realized that we actually have three distinct minds that operate on a different language and in a different way. And they, of course, communicate with each other, but not always that well. And so I define mind as a living system that gathers, processes, and generates sensory experience. So with that definition, you've got clearly the linguistic mind that uses words.
So here.
Yeah. And the visual mind, which uses images. And the somatic mind, and I use mind to describe the body because it does those things. It gathers information in the form of body sensations, it processes them, and it generates them. And so the three minds, the language of the body is body sensations. The language of the visual mind is image, and of the linguistic mind, words. And the three don't really understand the language of the others. So, for example, I can read a book about bicycles. The physics, the design, how to ride a bicycle. I can study every word, and I go out and I get on a bicycle and I'll fall down. And I'll keep falling down until my somatic mind gathers the necessary information, processes it, and starts generating the signals needed to master the bicycle. You cannot teach that with words. The somatic mind has to learn it. And there's many examples of how those three minds don't communicate with each other. And they do, of course, communicate with each other, especially subconsciously. So that occurred to me, and I thought, well, this is really interesting. And then I thought, maybe I can use this to get people into the shallow end of the pool, to our prior conversation. Because not everyone wants liberation. Not everyone is interested in hearing yet another mindfulness pitch. And so my thinking was, well, this is interesting enough that some people who are interested in the way their mind works might be interested enough to look into this. And so then I thought, okay, well, now I want to bridge this into the practice. And so I sort of made a pitch that, well, these three minds can work together more optimally if you do a few things. So they've got some problems, and one is distraction. So your body, your somatic mind wants you to go to sleep. You lay down, linguistic mind starts in on you, right? So that's a distraction.
Right.
Confusion, things are arising, you don't know what they mean, you don't know what to do, and then fixation. Well, so those are the three main
concentration, power, sensory clarity, and
That's right.
equanimity, of course.
That's
Yes,
right.
yes.
So those are the three problems, and then the antidotes are C, C, and E.
Okay.
And now you're into the practice. So the first part of my book is introducing that kind of hopefully interesting view of how the brain works, and then leading into just the rest of the book is just Shinzen guidance with laying out a series of practices. With there's a website where there's some recordings, and then so that was the purpose. And I did plan for it and hope for it to be useful in Asia, where the words mindfulness and meditation are not really easily assimilated or translated. and where Buddhism and other kind of religious, potentially religious ideas are not necessarily viewed favorably by the authorities. And so I wanted something that would just drop easily into China and Japan in particular, and be perhaps interesting and useful in getting people involved in the practice. But it's definitely shallow end of the pool, because I don't talk about the liberation or the dissolving of the sense, the fixated sense of separate self. Although I do have a chapter that says, something may happen with your perception of, your self-identity. Don't worry about that. That's okay. But that's really how that book came about. But I'm still teaching Shinzen technique. When I teach a retreat or classes, I teach pretty much straight up Shinzen. But as you know, we all have our own sort of ways that we describe and our preferences for how we order things, and so that changes. But what I teach is Shinzen, except that I do have in China some of my students, they study the book, and so I do teach in the sort of the language of the book in those classes.
Cool. All right, so as a way to conclude this hopefully to be continued conversation, we now find ourselves in tumultuous times, things changing, things are not looking too well for many people, brings a lot of anxiety, brings a lot of what should we do, and what to expect, and how could we contribute, whether it's going towards a favorable direction, who knows, how can we somehow have a positive impact. So all those concerns. So I'd just like you to offer some words of wisdom for our troubled times, whatever comes up.
So, all is well, even though it's a mess. That's not very helpful if you're not tuned to the right place for that. So the techniques I teach, because I have students that are tremendously concerned about exactly what you're talking about. The practice of working with don't know as an evoking. So evoking questions that you have in your life. What should I do about this? What should I do about that? What's going to happen when that happens? Confusion is also part of the don't know. I don't know what to do, and I don't know what to think, and all of those kinds of not having control, not having an answer, not even knowing how to go about finding an answer. All of that comes under the don't know mind category, and it's a very powerful practice to systematically, carefully, in a metered way, evoke a sense of not knowing, and then going to the body and finding where the emotional body sensations are that are associated with don't know. As a matter of the reality of our circumstances in life, we always have don't know. We always have those questions. One kind of question or another kind of question, relationships, job, etc., etc. Always those questions. And so developing a friendly relationship with not knowing, being okay with not knowing. There's a tendency to, so Shinzen once said that you can think about human history way back in prehistory. Human life was characterized by physical discomfort and mystery. So discomfort and don't know, right? What is lightning?
Yeah.
How did you get pregnant?
Yeah.
So and then at some point we decided, we can actually get more comfortable and we can get some answers. And we've been very good at that. I mean, we have this wonderful dwelling to be comfortable in, and et cetera, et cetera.
But it created the unnecessary confidence and
Right, and we lost the ability to be okay with not knowing and to be okay with physical discomfort and still be happy and content. And so one way that look at the practice is to recover our natural ability to be okay with not knowing. And so the don't know practice is one of the things I recommend for people that are caught up in tumultuous times as these are. And then I also, and that's sort of a turn towards strategy. But I also teach the calming version of Harada Roshi's breathing technique of slowing down the out breath until it's at least twice as long as the in breath, as we talked about. And that stimulates the vagus nerve. It's a known scientific phenomena that down regulates the activation of the nervous system. And so you find yourself someone who's finding themselves in a highly activated state for whatever reason that triggered, they can do that, and it works. And if they will practice it in advance, then when the earthquake comes, they're able to do that. So those are a couple techniques. Sometimes I'll do a little more practical advice, like turn off your TV. Turn off your TV and don't turn it back on. And you have control to a large extent over what you consume in the way of visual and auditory input. So use that power. That's in your control. And there are things you need to know, but there's a whole lot you don't need to know. And a whole lot of it that's served up in an intentionally manipulative way. And you can limit that. You have that choice. So sometimes I'll give some practical advice, but my expertise is in the technique. This is how you manage the emotional upwellings that are part of this life that we have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it very much.
Sitting with confusion is not something that we're going to do now, because we are pretty certain the mosquito time comes now. So we are going to conclude. Thank you so much, Blake, for this conversation. Enjoyed it immensely. Thank you so much. Thank you. And cut.
That was great.